Hello my fellow Ors, this is your Aura Sly here, and welcome back to the Aura Division, a wizarding community of lore keepers, artifact discoveries, and dangerous curiosities. Are you just now apparating to this channel? Quit being a muggle and subscribe down below, and Imperial! The bell notification button to alert the ministry you want or demand more content. Now, it's time to enter the chamber. None of us will be able to avoid dark magic forever. What do we do now? It's up to us. I can either teach you Crucio, or I can cast it on you. Your decision has been made. Crucio! In this video, we're going to talk about Sebastian Sallow's Dark Legacy secret. And ever since my last video, it motivated me to research even more into the dark arts. And what I have found will blow your mind. In the very first scene of the trailer, we can identify this location as the Forbidden Forest. We can see a very large tree with many signs placed on and around it. And it is basically telling the doomed adventure to keep out. Most signs state danger, turn back. Over there, this area is danger, Ministry of Magic. The cool thing here is that the Ministry knows about this location, which probably confirms something of importance is located here, or even hidden here. We can also identify patchy snow on the ground. It is written that the canopy of the Forbidden Forest is so thick that even light finds it hard to penetrate it. And this would explain why the snow is patchy across the ground. This doesn't really provide a lot of significance, but it confirms the seasonal changes in the game. In the next scene, we see the Avatar approaching the entrance to a dungeon. Here, we can see this is located in a clearing, as we see moonlight coming from above, as well as the ground covered in snow. We can also spot that this place is potentially far from the initial scene that we saw the big tree with many signs on it, as it showed a much more dense forest. Now in this area we can see the trees are not very dense and the canopy is actually quite open. We can even see the sky peeking through the trunks and branches of these trees. It still has the vibe and looks of the Forbidden Forest, but perhaps this location is located on the edge of the forest somewhere. What is interesting here is that the entrance to this underground dungeon is open, which is very odd. Adjacent to the entrance, we can spot a Celtic sign on a slab of rock. It shows a Celtic knot, a symbol that may represent different things. But I believe this one is referring to the continuity of life after death, or eternity, because we can spot the loop is continuous and it never ends. Another very interesting point here is the presence of these bodies covered in snow on the ground. These are clearly inferi, which brings me to some interesting questions. With the lack of a barred entrance and two inferi strewn about the exterior of this dungeon, was someone here before? If yes, were they looking to find what we're searching for? Who was this person? Clearly, inferi wouldn't just walk out of the dungeon and start exploring on their own. After all, these are dark creatures that were bewitched by a dark wizard to do that wizard's bidding. What do you think happened here? I think I know the answer, but more on that later in the video. In the next scene, we see a very large rounded chamber. This chamber looks to be a burial chamber of sorts, as we see many coffins scattered about, and seems to be the same scene we saw the skull mask guy from the previous trailer, which probably answers our question about the entrance of this burial dungeon being open with inferi scattered all over the ground. There is also snow covering the inferi, which we could conclude this battle might have happened sometime before we arrived. Over on the left, we see some columns that I discovered to have belonged to this chamber from the 2018 leak trailer when the Avatar finds this boggart or obscurial. We can also see these candles floating, but the most curious thing here is that there are only two of us in this chamber. Where is Sebastian? And the other interesting bit is that this student is clearly pointing his wand at us, and he never takes his eyes off of our avatar. We can also see this same student with Sebastion later in the trailer. So was Sebastion in the chamber already waiting for us? Why is this third student here? Were they helping each other? Or has this student been bewitched by the cursed Imperius and following every single command that Sebastion's giving to him? In the following scene, we see who we believe to be Mr. Sallow, Sebastian's father, and he is encouraging us to stay away from the unforgivable curses. He also mentions that he will tell the headmaster if we use dark magic, which means he has direct connection to the headmaster, confirming he is reporting things to this higher office, meaning he probably works at Hogwarts. The other interesting point is the location of the scene. Up to this point, we have been considering he is the gamekeeper of Hogwarts, but we have seen the gamekeeper's hut before, and this rugged stone wall does not fit the image. It does fit, however, the looks of this cabin on the other side of the castle near the Forbidden Forest. This hut of sorts seems to be much older and tribal in nature. We can see the same hut when our avatar talks to Natsai Onai during the State of Play trailer. Here, we can spot the same style of stone wall, door, and hanging pots. In my gameplay breakdown video, I mentioned this hut would probably belong to the Care of Magical Creatures professor, as this lesson was taught outside of the school, and the gamekeeper's hut is located on the other side of the castle. So am I correct to assume, my fellow Aurors, that this is the Care of Magical Creatures classroom location? Or was the gamekeeper's hut changed over the course of a few months? I doubt that. The other thing is Mr. Sallow the professor of Care of Magical Creatures in Hogwarts? Things to think about. In this next scene, we see that same Slytherin student we saw pointing the wand at us earlier. Here, he's doing the same action, but this time, he's not really pointing the wand at us. He looks like our character, with wands at the ready in case something jumps out and attacks us. His demeanor is not of a kidnapper or someone who has been bewitched by Imperio, as he looks simply scared and alert. But let me throw another log in the fire. In this Twitter post, we can see the same student holding or pointing the wand at us, while we are disarmed and in a submissive position. What do you guys think is going on here, Aurors? And again, where is Sebastion? My theory is that Sebastion will be waiting for us and sent this Slytherin friend to come get us or force us to help him, depending on how you interpret the previous scenes. But Sly, how do you know Sebastion knows this Slytherin guy? Slytherin is a big house and there are many possibilities. Yes, true. Except, we see these two interacting very closely, even whispering, during the Charms lesson preview we saw in the State of Play review. Back to the original scene, we can see a lit fire pit and some water dripping down the stone underground wall. And I thought that was a really cool detail added. The next scene presents us with the statue of Salazar Slytherin himself. There is no way this is someone else. A really cool detail is that we see the intertwined snakes around his head moving very gently, almost missable to the untrained eye. Initially, I thought this was the head of a tombstone, perhaps Slytherin's tombstone. But later I noticed these columns in a hallway that lead to some other area in the chamber, which made the placement of this head appear to be a statue of sorts. We can also spot a source of light coming from underneath, probably one of those fire pits or braziers that we have seen inside of this dungeon earlier, potentially leading us to believe this is a very tall statue of Slytherin. The statue fades and gives away to this dark tome, potentially signifying it belonged to Slytherin. And this is, in my opinion, my fellow Aurors, the most important shot of the trailer. You see, the stone is a very interesting item because it depicts many different origins. The very focus point is a small skull that probably symbolizes death, or warns the potential reader of the dangerous contents within. Engraved and elevated on its forehead is the symbol of what appears to be the Deathly Hallows, but without the wand. The circle and elevated bit look like a button or a focus point to the reader. In my previous Sebastian Sallow quest video, I mentioned this could be the access point to retrieve the Resurrection Stone. After all, this Hallow was passed down from the Slytherin family line to the Gaunt line, Voldemort's family. But the more I research, the more I believe this to represent the Eye of Providence, or the All-Seeing Eye. Nope, not that one, different franchise. Normally, the Eye of Providence is a benign sign that symbolizes an eye enclosed in a triangle and surrounded by rays of light or glory, meant to represent the eye of God watching over humanity. God, in this instance, is seen as a great architect that made everything into existence. But as we can see, there are some poignant differences between this Eye of Providence and the original one. This symbol is not in fact surrounded by rays of light, indicating some divine providence. It is instead surrounded by the quite opposite, a skull or death. And this third eye allows us to assume this is the Eye of Misfortune, as I call it, representing the death is always watching, a theme that matches the story of the Deathly Hallows, when the Peverell brothers were trying to fool or escape death to prolong their lives. Did Slytherin have the Tome of Death, the most cursed tome that contains the darkest of magic inside? This is getting hot, but it's about to get hotter. We know that Sebastian's sister is suffering from a mysterious, debilitating curse that will probably cause her to die. On Sebastian's card, it also mentioned he is convinced that hers, his twin sister Anne, last hope for a cure lies in the dark arts. We know that there could be many items such as the Resurrection Stone that Sebastian could use to cure his sister. But the Resurrection Stone, although allegedly made by death itself, was never really categorized as a dark magic source. The text emphasizes that Sebastian is convinced the answer to his sister's cure lies within the dark arts. And what if we're looking at all of this wrong? What if Sebastian is not trying to find an actual item? What if he's trying to find information? In the trailer, we spot this dark arts tome. I confess that the initial idea of hiding the Resurrection Stone inside of it was plausible, but then I thought again. This is a book, a tome, not an ornate box where dark wizards would choose to secretly hide something. And books provide one thing: information. The information Sebastian is looking for. But what information? What sort of dark information would a dark tome like this hold in secret? What did Salazar Slytherin learn or knew and kept it under wraps from the wizarding world? What type of super secret information would cause Slytherin to guard it in this book of death? A Horcrux. But why would Salazar possess such knowledge? Let's look back in the ancient timeline of the wizarding world's history. Herpel the Foul was an ancient Greek dark wizard, infamous for being a pioneer in the field of the dark arts. Born a Parselmouth, Herpel had the ability to speak with snakes. He spent his life studying the dark arts and inventing many vile curses. At some point in his life, after much experimentation, Herpel the Foul created the first known basilisk. And being someone whom is believed to be the first Parselmouth registered, he was able to control the beast. In addition to conducting dark experiments, Herpel acquired a great knowledge regarding the soul and how murder affected it. Armed with this knowledge, Herpel the Foul committed murders with the intention of splitting his own soul and subsequently seal it within an object with dark magic, thus becoming the very first wizard to have created a Horcrux. Now, we know that Parseltongue is extremely rare in the wizarding world, and one could count with one hand all of the Parselmouth wizards throughout the ages. We know that Salazar Slytherin was also a Parselmouth, and his heir, Tom Riddle, was another one. Parseltongue was believed to have been a hereditary trait. Would it be a far shot to say that Salazar Slytherin himself was a descendant of Herpel the Foul? Like the Resurrection Stone that was also passed down through the Slytherin family line until it reached the Gaunts, would it be hard to assume other things have passed down through generations until Salazar received them? What if the tome we're looking at belonged to Herpel the Foul himself, where Herpel the Foul immortalized the ritual of the Horcrux? How did Sebastian Sallow discover the information about the stone, you might be asking? This is actually a very easy question to answer. In the State of Play trailer, we see Sebastian Sallow being caught by the Hogwarts librarian as he's trying to find something again, meaning he hasn't found it yet because the information is very well hidden, but he's tried multiple times. But what we do know from the Harry Potter canon, that a very dark and secret book had been hidden in the restricted section of Hogwarts for many years, until none other than a Tom Riddle or Voldemort found it, learned about its secrets, and used it to create his very first Horcrux. The Secrets of the Darkest Art book. Unbeknownst to Dumbledore in later years, Riddle used this book to create his first Horcrux successfully. It is also known that Dumbledore took this very specific book away from the library in his years as a headmaster, due to the book's extremely dark and dangerous nature. My thought process is that Sebastian Sallow was the first person to find the stone and caused its eventual placement in the restricted section of the Hogwarts library. Perhaps Sebastian's trying to find more of a connection between Salazar Slytherin and Herpel the Foul, and perhaps their family heirloom, the Dark Tome, and then he proceeds to find where Slytherin secretly hid the stone. He eventually finds the location and discovers, from his readings in the restricted section, about its location at the tomb of Salazar Slytherin. After retrieving it, the book ends up in the restricted section until Dumbledore takes it away and brings it to his office many years later. But what do you think? Do you think this theory makes any sense, or is it too far-fetched? Let me know in the comments below. Additionally, below the representation of the all-seeing death, we can spot the Nordic symbol called Aegis Homer. And I'm sorry about the pronunciation, but this is the closest I could get. The Aegis Homer is known as the Helm of Terra, an old magical Norse symbol that a warrior would use to protect themselves and to assert victory in battle, as it would cause great fear upon the opponent. The circle in the middle represents the shield or protection, and the straight lines or spikes connect the safety to a god or deity, and in this case potentially depicting a protective spell on this book against death. From death? So dark. The symbols on the edges are mysterious to me, but if you have found their meaning, please let me know below. Next, we see the natural habitat of the Thestrals in a massive dragon burial site. The following scene shows us a bunch of beware spiders and extreme danger signs, followed by the approximation of a sneaky giant spider behind the avatar. The following sequence we can see in a live person who was recently bound by spider webs and more of these giant spiders around them. There are a lot of talk on the internet about these spiders and how they couldn't possibly be Acromantula. Because as we know from the books, the very first Acromantula to live in the Forbidden Forest was Aragog, Hagrid's pet. But when we actually look at the Fantastic Beasts book by Newt Scamander, it reads that Acromantulas are believed to be wizard-bred, possibly intended to guard a wizard's dwelling or a treasure, and that there were rumors of a colony in Scotland. Now, am I saying that these cannot be Acromantulas? No. I am saying that it isn't at all implausible that a particular dark wizard, Slytherin, or the Skull Mask guy, bred these dangerous creatures to protect this burial site. After all, there hasn't been a wizard who has mapped the entire Forbidden Forest and lived to tell the tale. The possibility is endless. But one thing is certain. These spiders also possess the red glowing eyes, a characteristic we earlier learned is present in corrupted creatures. We also learned that the Rookwood's people, or his gang, who wear these skull masks, are poachers, or animal thieves. So it is also plausible that they could have brought these spiders from elsewhere in order to protect this burial site. Then, as we play the game, we extinct these spiders until Hagrid comes along with Aragog, many years later. These are all, of course, theories, and nothing has been confirmed yet. Now, let's talk location. We know the scene is probably near the burial site entrance for the reasons we have mentioned earlier, and how much further it was from the thick and dense forest canopy, with all of the extreme danger and keep out signs. I also mentioned that these characteristics probably mean this burial site is near the edge of the forest. This is further confirmed by the missable tall spires in the background of these trees. We can see some tall towers and some windows that are lit from within. And what is the largest structure with tall spires around the forest? Hogwarts. And from the looks of this tower, I can hypothesize this area is located here, in the Forbidden Forest. In the next scene, we can see our characters walking through a snake-themed hallway, which indicate this is a hallway that potentially leads to the burial chamber of Salazar Slytherin himself. We can also spot some cool details such as these snakes' heads atop these columns. And this is probably the area where we're gonna finally meet Sebastian Sallow. As we can see, Sebastion is all alone, pondering at this door, and us, plus Sebastian's friend, are approaching from behind him, either being escorted as a friend or forcibly moved. I personally don't think it's the latter because Sebastian Sallow gives us the option to either curse him or get cursed by the Cruciatus Cursed himself, proving he is in fact a friend after all. In the shot, we see Sebastian drinking some sort of potion or trying to get a better look over this door. We can also spot the Crucio name magically engraved on the stone floor, which I think makes a very close connection to what Voldemort did at the cavern when Dumbledore gave his blood to open it to find the fake Horcrux with Harry. And like Voldemort's cave entrance, this one also requires pain and suffering. But in this case, much worse, where someone will have to suffer the Cruciatus Curse, or the Torture Curse. A curse that makes the victim feel like more than 1,000 hot knives are boring into their skin. Now, you can picture what Sebastian is willing to go through in order to get what he wants, to save his dying twin sister Anne. He doesn't care whether we cast it on him or he casts it on us, as long as it gets the job done. As the choice is made of whom will cast the Torture Curse, we can see this door depicting a person in great pain, submissive to a superior and painless person, symbolizing the riddle that one must suffer the curse while the other remains victorious, and thus solving the puzzle. The next scene shows Sebastian disarmed for some reason. Was it by choice or was he disarmed by someone else? In the background, we can hear a painful woman's voice stating, "You've made your choice," which is probably that of our avatar in pain after Sebastian curses us with Crucio and perhaps tries to apologize. Or could it be the voice of Sebastian's sister Anne, potentially suffering from her condition? What do you think? And I talk a lot more about Anne's curse in the Sebastian Sallow Connection to Slytherin video linked in the description below. And as we help Sebastian retrieve something from the Slytherin burial site, we somehow end up disturbing the peace and literally poke the snake with a short stick. All of the protective measures are activated, including the Inferi, to make sure the thieves don't leave alive with whatever item they stole. The video then proceeds to show our character facing a small army of Inferi by ourselves. Once again, where is Sebastian and his friend? We can also spot our avatar fighting another masked individual. Is this the same skull mask guy? Is this Rookwood or one of the same? In this very intriguing scene, we can spot what probably is Slytherin's barrier chamber entrance, being opened by our avatar or perhaps Sebastion behind us. We know Slytherin love to keep unworthy wizards and witches away from these places and use Parseltongue as means to open the Chamber of Secrets, for instance. Does it mean we speak Parseltongue? Sebastion, maybe? We can also spot our unknown Slytherin friend near the door on the right side, and he's appearing a bit calm. We can also see the top portion of the door displaying another Celtic knot made out of snakes, and the bottom snakes connected forming the letter S, which is very fitting. After we, or Sebastion, opens up the door, we can see the snake eyes glow green and fade away as the doors open. Inside, we can spot a column with the head of a serpent atop it, which happens to be very similar to that of this hallway that leads up to the door of torture, as I call it. We see a staircase magically made out of bones, and I say magically because we see these orange magical particles encasing this structure. These steps lead up to the next scene where we see the player casting Lumos in a very large barrier room with a door in the center. In this chamber, we can see it's being inhabited by these large spiders, as we see more encased dead bodies and webs everywhere. Later, we see an Inferius rising from a tomb and the statue of a bearded man with the face of a snake holding on to something. This is probably Salazar Slytherin himself, as this is probably his chamber. In this very next scene, we see a troll with glowing red eyes, meaning it was also infected by the corruption power. Now, I believe this is to be a mountain troll, due to its skin characteristics, as it is bald with a greenish skin, long pointy ears, and with mushroom and moss throughout his body. We can also see that this particular troll is very large. You see, the mountain troll is said to weigh approximately 1 ton, and as it is the heaviest, taller, and most dangerous of all the troll species. And this explains why it is hitting an Inferius. The interesting thing here is that the lamppost near the Inferius looks like the ones found at Hogsmeade and other populated areas. We can also spot some wooden boxes and a building of sorts to the right of the troll. Over to the left and behind the troll, we see large trees. This location is either inside of the Forbidden Forest or right by the edge of it. We can also see that this area is being lit by a fire pit or brazier of sorts, indicating the presence of a wizard or witch nearby. In this scene, we see Sebastian's father and probably our care or magical creature professors or the gamekeeper of Hogwarts arriving into the fray. However, I want to point out that this scene is a montage from 2 separate ones to pass a very specific message to the watcher. We can see here that Sebastian's father is actually facing away from a somewhat squared room with a door in its center, and I believe this is located here, while our heroes are located in a circular room which looks like the main barrier chamber, probably by themselves, looking at the consequence of what they had just done, potentially right after they get what they came here to achieve. But Sebastian's father won't seem to arrive until we are close to the very exit of this barrier chamber. The logo appears and the trailer ends with the very thematic emerald green colors of Slytherin. Also, if you haven't checked out my video about Sebastian's connection to Slytherin, go watch the full analysis in the description below. And look, there was a lot to unpack in this trailer, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did making it. Did I miss anything? And if you like the contents of this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and Imperio the bell notification button to alert the ministry you want more content. And look, if you have any questions about the Wizarding World's lore, artifacts discoveries, and dangerous curiosities, please leave a comment down below. You can also join the Aura Division community by following us on Instagram, Twitter, and Discord. Okay, so Dark Magic ending? Thank you so much for being part of the Aura Division community. And until next time, mischief managed.